Welcome to the Blueprint Breakers podcast. If you're done living by the traditional script or you're starting to question it, you're in the right place. This is where we talk about what comes next, pre-retirement, life design, reclaiming your time, your energy, and your freedom. Real conversations, real stories, real connection for women in midlife and beyond who are ready for a different kind of next chapter. My name is Amy Palmer. I am your host and facilitator for these conversations. To stay connected and find your people, come join us at community.blueprintbreakers.com. Today's guest is someone whom I've admired for years. I first discovered Joleene DesRosiers on social media through one of her very honest, vulnerable videos, and I've had the privilege of watching her evolve through so many different chapters of her life. Joleene has reinvented herself more than once. She spent years as an award-winning television journalist before becoming a public speaker, business coach, producer, screenwriter, fitness instructor, and now one of the leading voices in the world of user-generated content, or UGC. But this conversation isn't just about building a business. It's about having the courage to pivot, learning to value your work, walking away from opportunities that no longer fit, protecting your peace, and creating a life that gives you the freedom to spend your time where it matters most. If you've ever wondered whether it's too late to start over, whether you should charge what you're worth, or whether the next version of your life might look completely different than what you've imagined, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Hello, Joleene. Welcome. Welcome to Blueprint Breakers.
I appreciate you having me. Hi.
It's so good to have you here. Here at Blueprint Breakers, we talk with women who are living a life outside the tradition, the quote, the traditional norm or the blueprint and sort of, a particular path. And as I've mentioned to you, I've been following you for quite some time. I started as a fan and follower on TikTok, and then sort of migrated into other platforms and have been seeing all of the evolutions of your journey over the last handful of years. And so I thought it would be awesome to share that today.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's start with your career and where you came from and some of your beginnings so that we can kind of see where it turned and pivoted.
Yeah, sure. I was in television for about 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I started as a baby reporter in a tiny little city, actually a city that's probably about 15 miles from where I live now. Scared out of my mind, but it's what I went to school for. Learned everything I could possibly learn. Well, that's not true, but when you're new, I think a small city is key. It's a great place to begin. Grew fairly quickly. And then ended up, I'd say probably in year 4 of my career, I began anchoring. I began investigative reporting, winning awards for that, which made me feel like, wow, I'm doing something good here. I'm doing something right. Because how often do we question ourselves, right? And the things that we do. And I would say probably about 10 years in, I recognized a shift in the industry. There was a lot of toxicity. And I didn't want to be a part of that. I wanted to be a part of something where I could tell stories that had meaning and that were entertaining. And I've always had this propensity to want to write. I self-published, a few books. So the route I ended up going is very, very interesting because I thought, I've learned so much in my television career. I should talk about it. So I started this adventure, public speaking. And I had interviewed this woman who was a public speaker. I covered some event for teachers and there was this speaker there. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So when I interviewed her, I asked her a few things about it. She shared some information. She even offered to mentor me. We lived about an hour apart. So she taught me some things, got me my first gigs. And then I spent probably the next 6 to 8 years as a public speaker, touring the country, and then morphed into a business coach too. So I saw these speakers making money and I went to a conference and I discovered this whole business coach world. And hired these business coaches. And they basically said, we can teach you how to find speaking gigs, but you'd be really good at coaching. Are you interested? So I got certified as a coach at the same time I was coaching with them, became a public speaker slash business coach for women entrepreneurs, taught them how to make money in their businesses, and then went through a divorce. So it was like, I don't have health insurance unless I'm married. Yes, I could buy it.
Yeah.
But before we got on, we talked about seasons. I
Mm-hmm.
thought my season was done. So I kind of wrapped that back up with the business coaching and the public speaking, and then found a job with PBS as a producer where I could make things again, where I could make documentaries and segments. And they brought me in because I had experience in the newsroom to
Mm-hmm.
build shows for them. So I built a news magazine show, which is like a 30-minute, basically news program. I built a
Mm-hmm.
cooking show, having never done that before, with a local radio DJ who is so well known in this area, and then experienced this shift. And I was like, I just feel pulled to work for myself. I'm better at it.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with the toxicity or someone shutting me down. And I stumbled into UGC. I had
Wow.
seen videos of it. I was following someone who was talking about travel UGC, and I was going to move to Portugal. And I was like, oh, I can work on the road and all these things. And one day my partner, Ken, said to me, you ever hear of this thing called UGC? And he showed me this video of this young woman, probably in her 30s, talking about how she's able to travel the world making money. And I'm like, I know we always like to grandiose things,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I think I want to look into this, see what it's about. I've managed myself before. I'll manage it again. And so I dove into the world of UGC, and that was 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
What a ride.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it really is the culmination of all the other careers you have had, right?
I think
Between
so.
your television experience and then your producing experience, your writing experience, like it's like a little bit of everything all wrapped up into one.
And very convenient too. Yeah.
Awesome. So when you left television the first time, about how long ago was that?
Oh, wow. I started on 9/11.
Oh,
Which
wow.
was really
Jeez.
interesting. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
crazy time to step into news.
Yeah.
And I was in for 10 years. So that was
Uh-huh.
in, when was that? 2011, right?
Yeah, that'd be
Wasn't it? Isn't that
2011. Yep.
terrible?
No, no,
Um,
about 15 years ago then
oh my
that you
goodness.
left. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was in it for about 10 years. Yeah.
So since that was what you went to school for, was that what you always thought your dream was growing up?
No, I wanted to
No?
be a writer. I wanted to be a screenwriter. I didn't even mention when I was talking about my whole evolution. I
Ah,
spent a period of time writing screenplays, and my passion was comedic series. And
okay.
so while I was a speaker, I was also coaching. I really believe in coaching. I was
Yeah.
coaching with a place in New York City, out of New York City, but I did it virtually because I was
Mm-hmm.
started to go to film festivals, and I met all these people, but I worked one-on-one with an optioned screenwriter, and an optioned screenwriter is someone who was sold a script. She was working on another script. And so she was teaching people how to write. And I'm like, that's what I need. And so I worked with that company and that particular coach for about 2.5 years. And I got really involved in independent film and screenwriting. And I did that. And gosh, I did that for maybe 10 years. And I have a huge portfolio, and I won awards and I went to festivals, but I never connected with someone who had the money pot. And
Right.
it's also, it
Right.
was during that time where a lot of the things we see on television or online or that stream are more independent than we realize. So you
Mm,
don't necessarily need to connect with someone with lots of money, but you do need money.
right.
So I worked really hard, and I created my own sitcom. One of the sitcoms that I had written, I created a pilot episode, submitted it to different festivals, was never accepted. That's fine. It was a great learning curve, but I put the pen down. So it's been probably 3.5 years since I've written things, but now and again, and this is where what really moves me into UGC and into a completely different space. I don't think I've put it away. I think I just put the pen down because I think of the different things I've written and where they could go and what I can do with them, especially being plugged into the space of UGC, where script writing is pretty paramount to sell a product.
Interesting. Yes. In terms of what you just said a moment ago about putting the pen down, I agree that it was absolutely temporary, because even just hearing you share your story, the writing and the creative element is like bursting out of you, you know? So
Yeah.
it seems like it's come out in so many different ways and so many different directions. So it makes sense that that's something that would continue.
Yeah.
Was it hard to shift from, so the first time you shifted from sort of working for a corporation to doing your speaking and your coaching, was that difficult to do, or was it like a little easier because you had a husband at that time, or did that matter?
I think it was helpful because Mark was willing to float us, my husband
Uh-huh.
at the time, and I was really grateful for that. But I'm also an Aries, and I am a bull in a china shop. And when I attach myself to something I want to do or create or build, it happens quickly. And it did when I was a speaker. And I remember him just being blown away by it. And he's a prosecutor. He's been a prosecutor for many, many years. He used to joke with his friends because he's a lawyer. She makes more money than me. I'm a kept man. So to this day, I'm very grateful to my ex-husband. He's a beautiful human. So even
Mm,
though we're not married, we did the right thing disconnecting that marriage, but we have great conversations and a decent relationship, which I think is a beautiful thing. So I'm grateful for him for carrying me through that. And I was all done with relationships. And then I met Ken, who's my current partner. And he kind of did the same thing. He just retired. He was actively working, and I was experiencing just extreme toxicity at my place of employment. And I'd come home and he'd be here and he'd be like, "You've got to get out of there." And we have been talking a little bit about the UGC. And one of the things I used to coach women through is risk taking. And risk taking is something you can't teach people. Risk taking is easier, in quotes, for some people than others. You can't teach bravery. You can't teach confidence. You have to, you know, I had left before, like when I left news to become an
yeah,
entrepreneur. And
yeah,
there was that little support system. And a lot of times people say, well, that's how you were able to do it. And certainly at that time, he had a smaller salary because he was an assistant prosecutor. And those aren't really big salaries. And we were living with simple means, for a few months. But no matter what circumstance you're in, the truth of the matter is making that leap. I think we hold back so much because we're afraid we're going to go broke. We're
mm,
afraid that things aren't going to work out. We're afraid of not making it. And when you tell yourself that story and you bring that energy in, you exist in that energy. And it's the energy of desperation. So even with Ken, when he said, "I got you," I reverted back to, gosh, when I was married, that's what Mark said. I don't want it to be like that. And I doubled down so hard and fast. And it evolved in the perfect timing because that's just how things work. Because then he ended up retiring and I had moved so quickly. And with my moves were deliberate because one of the things in UGC that anybody who's in it will know is when you first get in it, you're in a swamp. And brands out there will pay you $100 and make it sound like the sunshiniest thing. And I remember when I first got into it, I'm like, you want all this work for $100? But you're listening to so many other UGC creators talk about, well, that's the entry point.
yeah.
I had done a lot of freelance writing as I built my speaking business, and I worked on websites that were dubbed content mills,
Mm.
and they were paying
Yeah.
crap money for me to write a speech for someone or to write their blog posts. But I would graduate incrementally. And so I was making more money than some other freelance writers, but still I busted my hump to get there. So a lot of people in UGC think that that's the journey, is accept these little piddly pieces of money to get there. And I learned as a business coach, that's not the way. It's
Right.
how you present yourself. So anybody listening to me who wants to, become an entrepreneur or work for themselves, they're probably going to believe that same story. You got to give yourself away. You got to start small. And certainly in the beginning, perhaps, but it does not need to last a long time. Because one of the things that makes, in my opinion, people successful isn't so much their talents, that definitely adds to it. It's how brave they choose to be and how they choose to step forward as an authority. So in the line of work I do, there's a lot of brands that take advantage of creators, making them the laborer and basically saying, here's the deal. We have $250. Give us all this work. Give us the perpetual rights forever and ever. We're going to give you $250. And new creators are like, yeah. And it's just,
Yeah.
it sucks. It's part of the learning curve, but they find this work on these content mill websites. They get stuck there and they get sucked in. And then
Yeah.
they listen to all of the conversation outside from, I want to be careful here, but younger generations that are grinding, been there. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I am going to have the same results, if not better, without the grind. I'm
Right.
going to work less and earn more. And the way to do that is to stop saying yes, to stop negotiating. You know, if someone says, how much is a 1-minute video? And you say $500, they're like, well, our budget is $250. We're being taught out there to go, okay, because now we're building a relationship and they're going to come back. And I'm like, you can still build that relationship, but with an authoritative voice, with firmness, but not aggressiveness, not anger, not defensiveness, just firmness and authority. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. My rate is 500. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. All done. Because the
Yeah.
more we keep saying yes to all this BS and letting them run our businesses, and that's what's happening, you aren't going anywhere. You're staying right there. You're not going to grow.
You know,
I get
it's
very
interesting.
passionate about this.
Yeah, no, well, and I've been loving, you've been doing some content on this topic, which I soak up every bit of it, because like I've had several different entrepreneurial experiences throughout my career, and this has always been an issue. I mean, you're talking specific to UGC, but it really plays out. It played out in coaching when I was a coach. You know, I saw coaches that were like doing it for pennies, you know, and and it was about knowing their value and knowing how to present what you're offering and the
Yeah.
quality of what you're offering.
Yeah.
I do want to clarify for anybody that doesn't know. Do you mind explaining a little bit about what UGC is, what it's all about?
Yeah. UGC stands for user generated content. And anybody
Mhm.
that has this device, a phone, basically has access to Instagram or Facebook. And when we're scrolling, we see all these ads. Buy these socks. This is the best toothbrush. Or we know our phones gauge our conversations. If you're talking about a hydration mix that you want to try, next thing you know, you're on Facebook and you see all these hydration ads, right?
Right.
So user generated content is where brands and businesses hire everyday people to create a video for their product.
Mhm.
And the way they pay creators, this is a generalization because there's so many different ways to do it, is basically per job. So
Mhm.
they'll offer $450 for you to make one video. And there's a lot of little nuances and add-ons and things like that. But there's so many different brands out there and there's so many different levels. But in a nutshell, that's what I do is I get paid to create. I mean, I'm set up. I should show you because when we're done talking, I have to film.
Mhm.
So
So you have a whole studio set up. Yeah.
yeah, I've got the lights, my tripod. I use a separate microphone. This is going to be for sheets and a comforter, and the comforter's sitting right there. And I
Mhm.
specialize in talking head, which is just demonstration of the product as opposed to people see UGC where they see clips of video over someone talking. That's called B-roll. And the
Mhm.
person will be using their new phone or we demonstrate it. We go, I hate that. You know, all those things. But it's create, you're a producer.
Right.
You're one human producing a video for a
Uh-huh.
company, which is why it's asinine for people to accept 100 or 150 or $200 for the work that they put in. But that's what
Mhm.
UGC is. So it's flexible and it's a climb like anything else. And you're not wrong. What I experience in UGC with the low balling and all of that is everywhere. And I think the reason that I pivoted so quickly is because as a coach, I started quoting coaching packages low, but I had a great coach and I blew up. The problem
Yeah.
is I didn't know how to slow down.
Mm.
And I have brought that lesson into this entrepreneurial venture where as a coach, I traveled a lot, which is fine. I was a little bit younger. I'm 54 now, but I worked like 60 hours a week. I did
Yeah.
everything myself. And I told
Yeah.
Ken, when I do this, I'm not working 40 hours a week because I'm also a fitness instructor. And everybody listening, I was 53 years old when I got my certification. 53. So I just began this journey and I'm very physically active, have been for like the past 4 years, bigger than ever, and loving it. So I want time for that. So you know how everyone talks about, I want time, I want time. The trick is it's not about the hours you put in. It's about how you choose to present yourself as a professional, even if you're scared to death and you think you suck. Because the number of times people have been like, can you do this for 250? Like early on, I was probably 6 months in when I'm like, I'm done with this BS. And I would just say, at first I would try to over explain, but I've learned brevity is also key. And I would just say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm here for 500. The number of times they say, okay. So they're always going to try to lowball you. And then eventually you graduate just like in any other industry. So this is applicable, like you said, everywhere. Eventually you become so confident in what you're saying and what you're quoting, that energy is a transfer. And the other party, whether they realize it or not, is like, wow, I'm working with a queen right now. This
Right.
chick knows her stuff. She's not afraid to back down. You're not a jerk brain. You just have this strong feminine authoritative energy.
You were able to really ramp up the UGC and then evolving into the VSL, the video sales letters. You were able to ramp up that whole business model pretty quickly. Do you credit that to the fact that you just decided to be like, just to be very careful about what you accepted and sticking to your rates? Was that, the key, or was there anything else that you think helped?
I wanted it. And I didn't know anybody else out there that even knew what a VSL was or used that language.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reaching back from when I was a public speaker. At that time, when you built Facebook ads, I could build them. Anybody could. They were easy. And there was this formula called video sales letter, where it was the coach talking. So when you go through your feed, right? And then you clicked and there you were to fill out the forms or whatever. They do call them yappers. So I was like, because just for clarity, if anybody's curious, because it is fairly simple to walk into this. And if they're interested, I have a link for a course that I took. It's not my course, but she is incredible and it's super affordable. But
It's the same course I'm in the middle of taking. Megan's course. Megan's course. Yes.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's such a beautiful human. She's built an incredible community. So it was intentional. And what I did is I pulled from the principles from when I was a business coach of what I wanted and what I didn't want. So even if we don't know what we want, if we know what we don't want, you're in line. What I didn't want was all this stupid B-roll. It was exhausting, especially when you had to change 3 outfits and they wanted sunny and they wanted, the sun on your face. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to tell stories. And I was already working with a financial brand where I got to sit at my desk and read these scripts, and these scripts are like 1,000 words. And I'm like, this is my wheelhouse right here. I want more of this. I rehired my business coach from 15 years ago. I'm like, how do I get here? He had no clue. But I did coach with him for like 3 months because it's all mindset and got a lot of refreshers. And what I remembered was there's no specific website or agency that specializes in this stuff. I just have to tell them that I specialize in it. Right. So I did. And I worked with 2 agencies at the time and other brands regularly. So I was really fortunate when I made the shift that I really wasn't looking for the work anymore. It was here. And so with the help of ChatGPT, I have the paid version and it's worth it to me. I said, help me draft this letter. Basically, I'm no longer doing standard traditional UGC. I'm only doing yappers and VSLs. And I started defining yappers as like 1 to 3 minutes and VSLs as 3 minutes plus. So basically, Chat helped me design a letter and I sent it off to one of the agencies that I was in retainer with. And it basically said, I'm changing my business model. I'm following the heartbeat of the industry right now. This is what I've noticed is working. This is my wheelhouse. I would love to continue working with you. Can we talk about something? And they were like, no problem. was like, oh my God, oh, shoot. But because I could have given up
Yeah.
3-4 grand a month in a retainer from that. And but here's what I knew. The thing with UGC is you got to be a triple threat. So you got to be really good on camera, really good at communication, and really good at running a business. And it's okay to trip and fall on your way there, but you have to have those 3 elements. Because if
Mhm.
you're really good on camera, but you can't communicate what you want to people, you're still stuck in that swamp and that laborer mode. Ask for what you
Right.
want. I learned that
Right.
so early on as a coach, and my coach taught me that you have to be willing to ask for things. And you have to be willing when I don't negotiate. When the negotiations start, done. This is
Yeah.
where the rubber meets the road. This is where this brand now will learn they are not going to dictate how this transaction works because this is my business. I'm the product. So they're not going to tell me how it works. I'm going to tell them. So I also learned this is where I really got into remembering and pulling back and revisiting brevity and authority and communication. So they said yes. And then I went to another brand that I had been working with. This one still breaks my heart a little bit. They were getting a base price and it was low, but my videos were making them buco bucks. So I did the same thing to them, and I had done yappers with them. So they weren't new to them. And they were like, no, thanks for everything. And they're still running my ads, which I'm learning, and I will continue to learn what to
Yeah.
do about that in the future. When you stop working with a brand, they call them usage rights. Everyone wants
Yeah.
perpetual usage rights. How to work that into contracts so that when you guys break up, whether you're in contract or not, I encourage new people, if you're working with a brand regularly, start incorporating a clause in your agreement that says, should you ever stop working together, that your ads they're done. Because
Done.
those ads are still showing up on my newsfeed, and I'm like, so they could
Yeah.
use me, but
Yeah.
I quoted
Ugh.
I raised my price and I
Yeah.
shifted my business model. And I did have a few creators say, well, was it worth it? Yeah. This is what running a business is like. It's like, I loved our relationship. It didn't end bad. There was no bad blood,
Right.
but it was a lesson in sometimes you lose things, but it opened the space to opportunities. I could cry. You have no idea what's out there, Amy. It's not
Mm.
just making a video with video, or you're making a UGC video with B-roll and, skincare. It's so much bigger than that. And it can be really, really incredible when you team up with a brand or an agency that genuinely values you, but they're only going to value you if you show up as someone who deserves to be valued.
Yeah, and that leads me to something else that I've wanted to ask you, because your personal content that you've had on your platforms, I've noticed maybe the last year-ish, maybe it's longer, but that you've become more and more vocal about UGC and about not only how to do it, but also the pitfalls to avoid in this whole lowballing thing that's
Yeah.
out there. And I'm curious why you've chosen to be vocal about it. Because my first thought is, because when I hear it, you actually get me amped up wanting to do it and try it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, why does she want us all trying it? Doesn't she want to keep people out? out and then, is she going to upset the brands when she's talking? So I'm just curious, like,
I love
what's
this question.
motivating you?
To answer your quick question, keep people out. There's room for everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate about not being taken advantage of.
Mm.
And that comes from personal past trauma, that word trauma. And knowing that, as when I was coaching, and then I'll get to the motivating part. When I was coaching other women at that time, I didn't know enough because sometimes I couldn't understand why they wouldn't take particular actions. Like, I'm taking them. Why aren't you? We're not all built the same. So that's why I said you have to have the trifecta. And some people, it doesn't make them poor at it or suck or anything. It's just that running a business, period, the most successful businesses know how to handle conversations, even ones that suck, and know how to step up in a way that says, well, this is what I'm selling you. You can't tell me how much you're going to buy this for. I'm going to tell
Right.
you how much to buy it for.
Yeah.
What motivated me was all the things I learned in the past. Interestingly, when I was coaching one-on-one, no one ever tried to change my pricing. It just didn't happen. And I started I would sell a 6-month package for $3,000. And then when someone would say yes, I don't stop. I move quick. Next conversation, $5,000. And if my coach told me to lay down in the middle of the road and get run over by 3 cars to have an outcome, I'd be like, okay, I'm a huge risk taker. I'm all in. And then it went up to $6,000 and then $10,000. And then I was selling coaching for $15,000 a package. That was hard. It was a lot of work. And the reason I don't coach anymore is because, and this speaks to the videos, is because you can't move people to do things they choose not to understand. And at 54, I've hit a space in my life where I'm tired of trying to convince people of anything, even of being my friend. I will let them be who they are. I've done the same thing that people won't understand. I may shut down and close people off. They'll probably never understand why, and vice versa. So it's not about blaming people for their actions. I do the same thing. And making all of that okay, because none of us do things that make sense. We want it to make sense. We want to understand why friendships end, all of that. We're never gonna. And just to try to give it grace. So it's funny you say I'm very vocal about it. I haven't posted in a long time. And the reason I stopped doing it is because the comments were exhausting me. It was like, and again, it goes back to the coaching thing where it's like, if you want an outcome, you have to take the actions. I just started personal training with a man, which I swore I'd never do, because he's a Spartan obstacle course race specialist. So Spartan obstacle course races are these hardcore strength and cardio experiences that are bar none. And I did my first one with Ken, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. And he's not a fitness person like I am. And I have another one coming up in October. And there's some obstacles that I can't do, that I can't climb a rope. I want to climb a rope. And I get these ideas in my head and I have to. So I chose to invest in that. I tried, I hung a rope up on a tree. I can't get up the damn thing, no matter how many videos I've watched. And I had my first training session with him this morning. And we literally had this conversation. And he said, you have to be willing to go through the shitty parts of these adventures we go through to get to the gold. Like when I talk about this, it sounds great and people dive in and they don't have the experience and they call me, they're like, this didn't happen. That's what I don't have the space for anymore. It's like, I ain't yanking anybody down any roads. If we at our age don't understand at this point that it takes the willingness to be extremely uncomfortable, I can't help anybody. So I've kind of put pause on those videos to focus more on me.
Yeah.
And if the desire hits, because you said you've been following me for a while, you have seen so many versions of me.
Yes.
And it's crazy. It's crazy to me because now I'm like, people must think I'm just, because I'm not consistent with my content. It's whatever phase of life I'm going through, the masculine, feminine, moving to Portugal, never having a, next thing you know, I'm not moving to Portugal yet. Let's hope that's somewhere down the road. But I've chosen to live my life with a human, and I never trusted that would happen. I chose to follow my passion for physical fitness. And UGC literally allows me to have that kind of life.
So yeah, you first came on my radar. I think it was 2021 or 2022.
Oh my God.
You had a reel that went viral. I believe it went massively viral, where you were talking about loneliness. It was on a really vulnerable day, and you literally were speaking from your heart. You just, were just talking about being alone and how you were feeling about that. And you talked on that topic for a while, and then it evolved. And I remember when you met Ken, and I remember when you were talking about the masculine and the feminine. So when you talk about like not being consistent, I think it really resonates because all of us, especially over these last, since 2020, maybe before that, we've all been going through like all these weird
Yeah.
iterations of who we are. So it's been really, it's been really fascinating to watch your journey with that. So do you plan, like, I know you're purposely sort of pausing and taking a break from social media. Do you plan to come back to it, or
I don't know.
maybe
I think
not?
about it because, the work I do matches kind of creating content on TikTok or
Right,
Instagram. And I knew what worked and I
right,
knew how to tell a story.
right.
And I've had this conversation with Ken because, you know, the thing is I'm actually, this is going to sound weird. I'm actually a really funny person. And I don't
Yes.
really,
You
that doesn't really,
sometimes you have some funny, you have funny content on there
I
too.
mean, sometimes and I'm like, why am I not creating, I don't know, skits? Or I'll be laying in
Mm,
bed and I'll be like, oh my God, that would make a great TikTok. And so I
yeah,
had this thought of just creating funny little TikToks. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And then it's like, I guess the truth is I just don't feel it anymore. It's like
yeah.
it got me to where I am, which is,
Mm-hmm,
learning to really, really be vulnerable, which I think
mm-hmm.
is key. And I really liked helping people. But I think the energy and, the comments don't mean anything and you can let them bounce off of you. But the energy of that, especially when they're dark and mean, is so exhausting. And I am in this new space in my life, and maybe it's, worth talking about in social media where protecting my peace is the most important thing, and it doesn't mean it's easy. I can create a TikTok about how protecting your peace and letting friendships go is important, yet I'm still struggling with it, which this is why I love Noah Khan so much. I don't know if you know who he is as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I love him because this is what he does. And I see this young man, he's 29 years old, and I love his story. I've watched his documentary twice. I listened to his music. Ken's daughters just saw him live in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
He's so brave and he has all of these flaws and is so vulnerable about it. And that's why people like him, whether they realize it or not. He's so
Yeah.
vulnerable about it. And I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I have taken that and put it into my work. And I think that's also what makes me successful because I may be selling an item and I use so many things. So there's always truth, a piece of truth to what I'm using, like the Tao toothbrush. I use that damn thing, but it's anchored in a story. And I get to tell that story and have it's almost like Noah Khan writing a song. People would be like, why this man is huge? Because I get what he's doing. He's sharing his life through his music that he's writing. And I have always enjoyed writing and telling a story that pulls people in. And UGC now gives me that space where I'm now starting to write some of these scripts, where one of the agencies I'm working with is like, yeah, let me see what you got. And I've learned, and I have so much more to learn. I've learned a lot about how to tell a story, a long form talking head story
Yeah.
in an engaging way. This industry is in its infancy. And if you keep
Yeah.
going and you get locked in with a brand or agency that loves you, they're going to trust you. And it is an integrous, respectful relationship. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
crap. It's not
Right.
the silly little videos. And you know what? It's cool if that's what people want. I just was like, there's got to be more because there's
Mm-hmm.
always more. And it's like the ceiling broke open. And then I crawled up through there and I see even another ceiling. And it's like, oh my God. And I'm curious. I'm optimistic, but I'm also careful. But the difference with this phase in my life now from other phases is that I move much slower. And I've always been very quick and I have been deliberately moving slower. It's just flowing with time and making this work for me. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
say one more thing. I'm watching Ken's father struggle with dementia, and I'm watching Ken and his brothers take care of his mom and dad. And that's a part of life that I thought I never would have time for because sometimes in my 30s, I was in a very selfish stage of my life and nothing else matters except that.
Right.
And you talk about vulnerable videos. There's one I did a while ago where I watched an older man get completely ignored at the self checkouts and his credit card wouldn't work. And the employee that is supposed to just watched him and was like, you just got to put it in. I was like, what the? And I
Mm-hmm.
stopped and I helped him and I got in my car and I just cried like a baby, and I made a video like basically, what are we doing? And to be fair, when I was 30, I didn't care either. So maybe for some people it takes us a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the Y yesterday, I taught, and I held the door for this older woman, and she waddled in with her cane and she said to me, "Thank you. Some people don't care about us fat old people." And I was so mad that she said that. But she's right, because some people just pass it by. And once upon a time, I was that person. And a lot of nerve people have coming in and scolding me for that when they're doing the exact same thing. My evolution is different, but I see it now.
Right.
And I wish I had seen it sooner, but nothing else matters. So I move slower, more deliberate. And when Ken says, "I want to go see my dad," I'm like, "All right, let's go."
Yeah.
Whenever I possibly can, because I do work, he's retired. And between he and his brothers, he manages the care of both his mom and dad. It's heartbreaking. And it just makes you realize, we think life is always bright and happy and you're moving and you're young, and you're not. We change and things evolve. And I don't know why I went off on that, but I just think it's important for us to know that.
No, it is, because I think because you've now set your life up in such a way that you can give those things the space that they need and deserve, whereas maybe in previous versions of your life, that was not the case. And I think what you describe is, I think Gen X women, I think we're kind of going through a lot of that realization and sort of looking at things differently and wanting to slow down and tired of the grind. So, what you describe is just very, very relatable on such a huge, huge scale.
Yeah,
So,
thanks for letting me open that one up.
yeah. Thank you
And
for sharing.
for Gen X women, becoming an entrepreneur or working for yourself, Amy, I don't work 20 hours a week.
Mhm.
If it pops at 20, and I'm saying this because it didn't start that way, but that's what I wanted. Like, back to you
Right.
saying, what was your motivation? I would tell people, literally write down what you want. And I
Mm.
didn't want to work 40 hours a week, and I didn't want to grind. And it took a lot. Like, Ken is very patient with me because he does a lot of behind the scenes stuff. He'll bring out the equipment, so help set up the lights. I taught him how to shoot, all of this. And
Mhm.
I'm an anxious person, and my anxiety often manifests as anger, which, thank God, he doesn't take it personal. I'm angry at the table. I'm angry that this microphone didn't work, all these things. Why?
Yeah.
It took me years, being this anxious, everything has to be done now person, to realize
Yeah.
there's a lot of hours in the day. It'll get done. Something else takes precedence. But I chose something where I could work part-time hours, but it's a full-time paying
Full-time
gig.
pay. Mhm.
And it's extremely lucrative in many ways, not just financially. It has been incredibly fulfilling. And I just want people to know, if they're going to try it on, what it looks like and feels like in the beginning is not, it doesn't have to stay that way.
Right. Right. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, Jolene. Do you have any last thoughts for any midlife woman out there who is ready to sort of make a pivot and something's kind of holding them back? Any thoughts for that?
Fear is holding them back. And it doesn't matter what they say their fear is. Everybody else has a fear. So their fear isn't worse than anybody else's. And there are many stories that we build around that. And I know that's really, really hard to hear, but it's true. And
Yeah.
you're never going to be in the right position to begin. So a lot of us will hesitate and say, well, when I finish this, I can start that. Start it now. Start it in little pieces. We end up with 1 foot on the "this is my life" island, and 1 foot on the "this is the life I want" island. And we stand on those two pieces for a really long time, and we wonder why there's no progression. We have to lift the other foot off, and we have to let that life fall away. It's true of every single thing in the world: relationships, work, friendships. You have to take your foot off. You will be fine. You have found your way all this time. You have done it. You have figured it out. You will be fine. Just do it.
Yes. Wise words. Thank you so much, Jolene. It's been great speaking with you.
My pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Blueprint Breakers podcast. What if your best career is still ahead of you? And a very special thank you to my guest, Jolene. Thank you. If you haven't done it yet, please remember to follow or subscribe, and please give us a 5-star rating on whichever podcast platform you are using. Have a great week. Keep on breaking those blueprints and rewriting your own.